qualification. The two-stroke twin class had a 16 bike eliminator, and we picked things up at the semi-final stage. Number one qualifier Harry Barlow is here racing Adrian Hall, both Yamaha mounted. Harry had gone as quick as 10.4 seconds leading up to the elimination, and was to go as quick as 10.34 seconds during the day. The second semi-final were two more members of the Pro Porting team. This is Jerry Collier, and he's racing Roy Chappell. Once again, all the machines in the semi-finals are Yamaha. Jerry Collier gets the whole shot, and Roy Chappell seems to sit up with a problem and then get going again. But it's Jerry Collier versus Harry Barlow in the final. The two-stroke twin class has grown quite a large number now of Harry Barlow clones, and the Pro Porting Yamahas with their one-piece bodies and long low chassis are really now the norm for the class. Harry's bike is 430cc, Jerry Collier's still at the standard 350. And Harry has a performance advantage here of almost a second. But as he's shown earlier in the season, things can go wrong. But not today. He pulls out a good advantage off the start line and just powers away from Jerry to take the two-stroke twin elimination final. The two-stroke open class was an 8-bike eliminator, and once again we picked things up at the semi-final stages. Number one qualifier was John Kuhn in the high 10s, but there were a whole bunch of racers right behind him in the 11-0 bracket. This is Alan Tinian with his RD 500, and he's racing John Kuhn with his GT 750. And Alan red lights away his chances, letting John Kuhn go through to the final. The second semi-final is an all Suzuki RG 500 affair. This is Dave Alloway, and he's run 11-0 so far today. He's racing Mark Gosling. The bikes launch together, but Dave Alloway powers away to go through to the final to meet John Kuhn. So the two finalists have got there running 11-0 in Dave Alloway's case and 10.71 in John Kuhn's case. The modifications to the chassis on John Kuhn's bike allow him to get that little bit better start, but you can see from our top end camera that Dave Alloway is actually coming back quite quickly at the top end, but it's John Kuhn that takes the win. The four-stroke twin class was once again an 8-bike eliminator, and the bikes have made their way through to the semi-final stage. The first semi-final is Lynn Rowe with the unenviable task of racing Maz Kubicki. Maz being the person that has really set things alight in four-stroke twin this year, running as quick as 11.17. Here he goes through to the final at 11.27, almost a second advantage over everyone else in the class. The second semi-final is John Benham with his Moto Guzzi Le Mans, a 950cc bike which he rides regularly on the road. He's racing the Triumph Matisse of Dave Butler. So Italian and English semi-final here, both in the low 12s, and a very even start there, but it's Dave Butler that gets through, running 12.2 seconds. So here we have the final, and it's the Triumph Matisse against the Ducati Passo. Incredible improvement in performance over last winter. Ran a best of 12.11 last season and has now run 11.1, and that's an incredible amount to make up on a quarter mile. And Maz Kubicki charges away from the start line, launching like no other four-stroke twin, and just powers away to take the win, once again in the 11.2 second bracket. We had sensations in the Open 750 class earlier on in the year when Ian Dales dipped down into the 9-second bracket. And here we have Ian Dales in the first semi-final of Open 750. He's racing Michael Baker, another 10-second runner. Michael having run a best of 10.8 seconds. Ian sometimes goes to sleep on the lights, and some of the runners do have a bit of a chance if they can get away from him on the start line. But he certainly has a colossal power advantage at present. But who knows what will happen in the future. This time round he makes no mistakes, gets a good clean start, and he goes through to the final, running 10.09. He'll meet one of these two. This is Dominic Farley. He's run 10.3 so far today. And this is Paul Baker. He's in the 10.6 second bracket. Once again, both machines 750 Suzuki. A little bit of start line psychology here as both bikes sit in pre-stage, and then they're away. And that's a good start from Paul Baker. But Dominic Farley drives round him at the top end to go through into the final. Now the final, and these two have met several times so far this year. And once again, no one wants to stage first. Real drag race psychology. And it's up to the starter now to move forward and make the bikes go into stage. And that's what they do. We were hoping to see another 9-second run from Ian Dales, but we weren't prepared for what actually happened. Ian gets easily the best start he's had all day and really powers on down the track. And as you can see from our top end camera, is a clear winner, but he's gone under index. A 9.87 hands the win to Dominic Farley. The three big 4-stroke multi-cylinder classes have 48 racing spots. And incredibly, just half a second covers all 48 bikes. This is the final of the third 16, and Len Clark with his Kawasaki races Carl Larkham with his turbocharged Suzuki Katana. All these classes running on the 990 index, and all the bikes are in either the high 9s or the very low 10s. Real competitive stuff. Len Clark with the normally aspirated bike gets marginally the better start, but in the second eighth you can see Carl Larkham just pull away with the additional power of the turbo, and he takes the win. The second 16, and this is the final. Mal Sampson versus Colin Hall. Mal Sampson's bike is actually quite interesting because it is a Suzuki Katana, but a 750 with a 1260 motor in it. Colin Hall has a GSXR 1100. Both bikes get away from the start fairly evenly, and any advantage that Mal Sampson manages to pull out at mid-track is eaten up at the top end by Colin Hall. And once again, with the top end camera, you'll see just how close a drag race can be. They get away together, and Mal Sampson in fact pulls out about a bike's length at mid-track. But just see how close they are at the top, with Colin Hall taking the win. Top 16, and we're at the semi-final stage. This is Roger Turner with the Quick Cat Katana, and he's racing Paul Wilson. And once again, this race shows what index racing is all about. They're limited to 9.90. Roger Turner gets the better start, and you'll see him visibly slow at the top end. But Paul Wilson goes on to run 9.900 and still loses by virtue of a poorer reaction time from the start line. The second semi-final, this is the 1500cc Suzuki of Rob Ellard. And he's racing Dean Williamson. And Dean has quite an interesting ride here. So Rob Ellard with the 1500cc normally aspirated bike, and Dean Williamson with the 1100R with the turbocharger. The bikes get away from the start line together, but just watch these wheelies from Dean Williamson. But he just nonchalantly powers on at the top end and takes the win. So the final, and it's Dean Williamson and Roger Turner. Both bikes capable of getting right onto the index, and as you've seen from the previous runs, both very conscious of that index, watching where their opponent is and just gauging their top end performance accordingly. It'll be all down to the start once more. And as they move into stage, and it's Roger Turner that gets the better start, and once more Dean rides through the wheelies, and Roger just eases off at the top so that he doesn't break out, and he takes the top 16 eliminator. We now move into the Super Street Bikes, and they've had a busy day. Remember, they ran at 10 o'clock in the morning through a whole 16 bike eliminator. Now in the afternoon they're back out again, and we've picked them up at the semi-final stage. Neil Midgley's rebuilt his gearbox, and Brian Emery is on a high, having just won the ACU eliminator, but he wheelies away his chances, and Neil runs back down into that 8-second bracket and into the final. He'll meet the winner of this semi-final. This is Steve Sykes, once again running 8s, and he's racing Dave Turner. Dave having got so close to the 8s all day, running a best of 9.02. The start line reactions are much the same, but those dreaded wheelies are back for Steve Sykes, and he really has to keep his head down to keep things going. But gearbox problems there for Dave Turner, and it's Steve Sykes and Neil Midgley into the finals. These two have enjoyed some fairly epic finals so far this year, and as they were saying earlier, it's consistency and niggling problems which are the real worry on these rocket ships. Both these bikes are running 2-stage nitrous injection. Steve's bike is relatively small capacity, just 1260, while Neil's is a massive 1500cc. And both have run very, very similar times, down in the 8.6 second bracket, and both almost 170 miles an hour terminal speeds. And that's not hanging about on a street bike. So they move into stage, and it's Steve Sykes that gets the best start and looks to have the whole run covered, pulling out almost 2 bikes lengths at mid-track. But something goes wrong, and Neil Midgley comes past at the top end to take the win. The Super Twins series has really taken off this year. We run 3 classes within the format. An out-and-out competition class, where anything goes, and 2 street classes. Street 1 has a 1000cc capacity limit, with no turbos or nitrous allowed. Street 2 is unlimited capacity, and turbos and nitrous are allowed. Both street classes must use readily available street tyres. Street 1 and the semi-finals, and it's that red Ducati of Maz Kubicki, and he's racing the 850 Yamaha of Tony Hall. Once more Maz continues on his winning way and powers through to the final. The 4-stroke twins have been busy today, running in Ultimate Street Bike as well, and this is a repeat of one of the Ultimate Street Bike semi-finals. Dave Butler with the Triumph Matisse and John Benham with the Moto Guzzi Le Mans. And the result remains the same, although another desperately close race, Dave Butler goes through into the final to meet Maz Kubicki.